All right, everybody, welcome back to the Be That 1% podcast. Today, I am joined by a great friend and soul fam, feels like. This amazing woman sitting across from me is one of the best coaches in the dance world, also in the studio and management choreography space, which I'll explain a little bit about. But more importantly, I've known Bre Acosta for the last 13 years. We've gotten to work together in many different fronts in the dance world, which is one of the most amazing spaces to, I think, learn and dive into, which we'll share a lot of that today. But above that, Bre is a growth-minded, heart-centered leader, and she has a brilliant mindset in that no matter how hard something gets, she believes that we'll just figure it out. She'll leap without thinking at times and figure it out on the way, which is the true definition of an entrepreneur. And when you hear her story today and what she's been able to build in such a short period of time, you'll begin to see through how she describes what she does, why she is in the position that she's in. And it's a great honor to have her today, to learn from her, to hear her story, but also for it to be a reminder that no matter where you are and how you start, you can still build something that's meaningful to you and build something that lasts, which is something that I'm always really focused on. And so Bre Acosta wears many hats. She is a coach, dance coach for some of the top teams in, I would say, the world, but definitely the country, Coronado Cougar X being one of them. She's a 4-time national champion, and she'll explain a little bit more about that. She has her own choreography agency that now has 25 choreographers that does choreography for over 10 plus countries, won multiple championships, and is one of the best in the country. And she continues to learn. She shows up as a student. She's humble. She's hungry for knowledge, and she's relentless in pursuing what she finds important. And so she's also a mother of a young new baby boy, Miles, 2.5.
1.5.
Yeah, 1.5, 2. Okay, and Bennett. Yep, I was getting to Bennett. So mother of 2 and wife to an amazing husband, Rob. A shout out to you. And without that, like you guys, without further ado, welcome to the show and thank you for being in my life.
Thank you, James. I'm so grateful our paths crossed. We were just saying, 13 years ago?
13 years.
And it's just been, it was meant to be, and just really grateful for you. And thank you for inviting me to come on today.
Yeah, of course. So what else, like I'm looking at what you've built so far, right? As a coach and I think for those listening that don't know the dance world very well, what I try to do anytime I tell people that I work with dance athletes mentally, I will usually start off by saying they are so underappreciated, the industry as a whole. Like they don't get the credit that I think they deserve for how much work they put in, right? The time, the commitment, the sacrifice. They are some of the strongest, most durable athletes that I've ever had the honor of working with. I work with wrestlers, basketball players, football players, like baseball players, and dancers are unique in that it's a sport you don't really think about it being gruesome at times, but if you're in it, you know.
Oh yeah.
Let's just start off with a base understanding of dance. What do you think the common person does not know about the dance industry?
Yeah, I think you explained it perfectly, where there's so much, it's where athleticism meets artistry. Not only do you have this artistic, beautiful routines and storytelling that they create with their movement, but they are athletes to the highest regard. My dancers at Coronado, they do weight training 5 days a week. We run miles every single practice. Their strength has to be at the highest level, and their mobility has to be at the highest level. And then you have to perform it, right? You can't just go out and do it. You have to bring that next level of performance with your athleticism. And so I think that's something that most people don't realize. It is a very athletic and very grueling sport, and it's year round.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, you can't do a lot of other sports. You do basketball this season, you do volleyball this season, you do swim this season. Dance, it's nonstop.
Yeah. Yeah. And you spend most of your time in the high school dance. Yeah. Branching off into college with some of your BCM choreography stuff. What are some of the differences that you notice between the high school athletes and the college athletes?
I mean, I think similar with most sports, college is just that next step up. It's even more grueling, more competitive. That's like with many sports. It's like, it's one thing to get to the high school level. It's another thing to get to that collegiate level. So I think that would be just the biggest thing. It's more selective. It's the best of the best. And I mean, you've been to college nationals now, right?
Yes, many times.
You've seen, it's intense. It's insane when you're in that arena and those top teams are on the floor. The entire place is just erupting in cheers, and it's intense and so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So being a coach now for almost 11 years, which is amazing, and the hours that have been spent seeing patterns of how athletes show up, what they struggle with, the inner workings of team dynamics. What excites you most about starting a new season with a team of any kind?
I think for me, I'm always reflecting, and I'm a different coach every single year. And so what gets me excited about the new season is sitting down and looking at the athletes we have and how are we going to get them to be their best and have their best season, because every team is so different. And what's crazy is, I don't know, I remember a couple of years ago, one of our most successful seasons, at the beginning of the season, my thought process was, okay, it's a rebuilding year. We're majority underclassmen, majority rookies. We're just going to, really focus on these fundamentals and see what happens. And then that ended up being one of our most successful years, which then was a reminder for me of, okay, so maybe every year I need to really just focus on the fundamentals and being clean and getting everyone to just have fun and bond together. So as far as what excites me for each new season, it's what are the possibilities of this group of dancers? What are we going to do differently this year from last year? And how's it going to turn out?
Yeah.
Because every year is so different.
What has dance as an industry taught you so far?
There are a lot of answers to that question, James. So personally, growing up, I danced obviously. And, I was always told dance is not a career. You go to college and you get a real job. Right. And I remember I did have one teacher once, and this is always going to be in my mind. I was probably 12 years old. And I said, yeah, well, dance isn't a career. And she looks at me, she goes, it's my career. I was like, oh, it is. And so still though, going into college, I was originally majoring in anthropology, and then I was majoring in nursing. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to be a dance teacher, because then I get to still do dance, but I also have like the real job, right? I'm a teacher. I'm with the school district. You have the benefits, the retirement, all of that. And then I remember there was a time when there was nothing I wanted to do more than be a dance teacher. And then I was a dance teacher, and it was great. And I loved it. And I was at Coronado, and the kids were great. Admin was great. It was just awesome. And then there was nothing I wanted to do more than be a choreographer. And so I started choreographing for my own team, and then started choreographing for other teams. And then that ended up being, I quit teaching, and that was my full time. And then there was nothing I wanted to do more than help other people achieve their dream of being a choreographer. And so that's, a part of how the agency started. And so I think that being in dance has taught me more than anything that the sky's the limit, and you can always to go after what you want, right? And that's the biggest thing I try to teach my kids at Coronado too, is it doesn't matter how big your dream is. Like, you're going to learn through this program how to work hard, how to overcome, how to keep going and never give up. And you can do anything you want to do, and you can change your mind at any moment too. I work with high schoolers. They're 18 years old. They think they have to decide what their major is going to be and what they're going to do for the rest of their life. And I always tell them, you don't have to decide now what you're going to do for the rest of your life. You are 17, 18 years old. You can change your mind at any time. And then I'll normally tell them, Want to do this, change my mind. Want to do this, change my mind. Now I'm doing this and I'll probably change my mind in a couple of years, you know? And so I'd say to answer your question is do what you want to do, go after it, and don't give up.
Yeah. I love that. I think we were talking before this about some key characteristics that you think have played a big role in your ability to scale as fast as you have so far in the short time that you've owned the agency. Care to share what we had talked about as far as that, like one main characteristic that maybe businesses as a whole don't utilize as much as they should, and maybe the dance industry also does not look at this as often as they should?
I think it would be collaboration, right? Working together and lifting people up. Something I learned from you actually was that difference between scarcity mindset and abundance mindset, right? Scarcity mindset being your win means my fail. I can't cheer you on because there's not enough for both of us. And the abundance mindset is knowing that there's enough success and enough jobs and enough wins for everyone. And your win, I can celebrate rather than feeling threatened by that. So that idea of abundance mindset and collaboration has absolutely 100% helped me with everything I've done. One of my big goals with the agency actually was, in the dance team world, dance studio world, dance choreographer world, it can get really catty.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who feel threatened by others' successes and they have their secrets. We can't tell other people our secrets or they'll beat us. But that's just not how it works, right? And so with the agency, one of my goals was I'm going to bring people in who have this great growth abundance mindset, and let's learn from each other. Let's teach each other our secrets, and let's all rise because of it. And so we have our training every year here in Vegas. I rent an Airbnb. Everyone comes out and everybody shares how they do what they're best at. So we have Chelsea. She's great at layering and staging. We have Troy and Marisa. They're great at the authenticity and the hip hop. We have Jackie, who's also great at all of those things as well, and building the relationships with the teams. And so everyone says I want to learn that from that person, that from that person, that from that person. And then they teach it and they share it and they say, this is how, this was like what I did with that team that won that world championship. This is what I did with that team that won that national championship. And through that collaboration, everyone's more successful. Yeah. And then even through the season, like our choreographers will send videos into our group chats and be like, hey, I feel like this is missing something. What do you think? And everyone says, I think you need maybe another solo here, maybe another layer here. Love when this comes together, but do this to make it better. And half the time that choreographer might have a routine that's in that same division. But what it is when we all help each other, we all rise. Another story of that is actually, there's another coach here in town. So within coaches, you see it too, right? Like coaches, you can't see my routine because then you're going to change yours to beat it. No one's changing the routine to beat yours. But anyways, China coaches basic high school, and we often compete against each other for POM. But you best bet that we are sending each other videos and helping each other make those routines better. And I remember there was one specific year when we did that a lot just because we were both really struggling with our POM routines. And that was the first year Coronado won POM at nationals and basic was fourth in POM at nationals. And we're talking a team that I think that was their first time in the top 10. And so yes, we compete against each other, but by helping each other out, we both made history for our programs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's powerful.
Yeah. So that collaboration, I think, is what has helped me with everything, with making Coronado Cougarettes what they are today, making the agency what it is today, even Envision, a studio that I bought recently. I'm talking to other studio owners and I'm asking for help. And when they are struggling with something, I'm offering them help, because the more we help each other and collaborate, the better we all are. And I think that's the biggest thing that holds people back. I can think of a couple programs and a couple coaches who are very, very scarcity mindset. And I don't think he'll ever reach the top because they have such that lack mindset,
Yeah. When I hear you talk, I think of a framework that I like constantly think about in my mind. It's like this idea of playing to win, right? And winning in the way that in dance is, it could be top 5. It could be an actual national championship. It kind of depends on how you view it or how you define it. But there's 3 levels to playing to win. The first level is beating others. So it's kind of what you were talking about, right? I win, you lose. I'm right, you're wrong. We're the best, you're not. And it's very adversarial, and it also can provide motivation to get people to do something, but it's not sustainable. Level 2 is where you beat yourself, like your past self, right? So there's a bit more internal motivation, a bit more sustainable because you're in control of what effort you're putting in, and you can continue to push the envelope, and it's on your pace and in your own style. So that's better. Then it's improve the game. Right. So improving the game is everything I'm doing is the rising tide raises all boats idea. And this can go to a marriage where it's like beat my wife, not physically, but like I'm better than you, kind of competitive. And then it's I'm improving myself. But most of the focus is on me. Like, how much am I growing? How much am I getting? Am I getting my needs met? Me. And then it's improve the marriage. Is what I'm doing improving us as a collective, right? Is it improving dance as a whole, as an industry? Is it improving our city, our country, And so I often go back to that framework and find, am I slipping into level 1? Am I still operating in level 2? Or am I playing at level 3, which is really where everyone improves? And it sounds like what you're trying to do as often as you can is the level 3. How do we improve all of us at the same time?
Yeah, I would love that. And that's actually a big goal of ours with the studio, because my business partner, China, and I, we were talking one day and we talked about how most of the studios in Vegas, we wouldn't take our kids to, because there's so much toxicity and so much of the owner's or coach's ego is attached to the kid's success, when at the end of the day, like especially these younger kids, 8, 9, 10 years old, like these kids shouldn't be worried about if they go and they win this competition. They should be worried about learning, having fun, number 1, right? Having fun and learning the life lessons that come with youth sports, the teamwork, the collaboration, the I can do anything mindset, the hard work, the perseverance, the overcoming the challenges, all of these things that make them happy, thriving individuals in life. And there are so many dance studios that the kids not only don't get that, but end up with things that hurt them that hold them back from being their happiest selves as adults. For example, with Coronado, we get kids from all different studios, and I can normally tell you what studio a kid comes from by what thing they struggle with the most mentally. Whether it's fixed mindset, it's like, okay, they come from that studio, or they come in with zero confidence. Okay, you come from that studio, or they come in with an idea of like cockiness, like I have to act like this but really I feel like this. They come from, a different studio. And I hate that. That makes me so sad for our industry. It makes me so sad for these kids who just want to dance and do what they love. And they're so impressionable, and they go into the studio and it's not a positive experience, and it doesn't make them happier, more thriving individuals. And so a big goal of ours with Envision was creating a studio that we would take our own kids to, first of all. And 2, that creates happy, thriving, and successful on and off the dance stage, the competitive stage individuals. I think I lost track. What was your question?
No, I think you were just sharing about how your observation of how certain studios and coaches operate, you could plug them into one of those levels.
The level 1, level 2, level 3. Yes. Yeah. And so the goal always is, and I'm sure it's similar in other towns too, not just in Vegas, but yes, can we change the industry at large from being, even, the shows like Dance Moms. You watch Dance Moms and it's like, I don't know any parent that watches Dance Moms and says, I want my kid to do that, But unfortunately, there's so many studios across the country that are like that. And so yes, how can we be at that level 3 and change what dance is across the country, across the world, to being somewhere where parents want to sign their kids up because they know my kid's going to join this and become a better, happier, thriving individual, and it not be what it is right now in so many places.
I mean, the common behavioral characteristics and mental characteristics that I see is low confidence, high anxiety, social, the social skills aren't that developed, and they're isolated. And so a lot of the work that I do when I come in and work with the team is really breaking down a lot of those barriers and reframing a lot of who they believe they are, so that, one, the passion for dance can be reignited, which is the most important. Because oftentimes it's just very monotonous and routine, and it's like have to, not get to energy, right? And so there's like okay, here we go. And you're just not going to get people's bests when that is. The anxiousness is the worry about tomorrow, today, you know, and like, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to be viewed this way. I don't want to look stupid. And it's like they're living in all these other moments except for this moment. And so high performance can't happen if you're constantly toggling back and forth. And then the confidence, it really comes from the lack of acknowledgement of the growth that the athlete has made.
Yeah.
You know, and so do you notice the same thing? And, you know, with what you're doing at Envision or Coronado, and Coronado's in Vegas, by the way, for those listening and don't know where that is, or through the agency, like, how often are you having these types of conversations with the choreographers and with your assistant coaches and other coaches?
Every day, it's like, okay, this dancer is struggling because of this, because a lot of negative behavior comes from those things, those hidden insecurities, right? And so when we have a kid who's maybe talking badly about another kid, the conversation with the coach is, okay, what's really going on here? Obviously they're feeling like they're inadequate. Otherwise they wouldn't be putting this other dancer down. So how do we help raise their confidence and help them realize that, you know, that dancer doing well, it doesn't mean you're not doing well. You know, we're a team. But yeah, it's crazy how prevalent it is. And you coming in as a non-dancer, I feel like you probably see it more than I do, because I am a dancer. And so it's almost like some of these things become the norm. And so you don't realize them as much. But when you go and you work with these teams, I'd be curious to hear more about what you see. And you work with some of the best teams in the world. Thank you. Including Team USA last year, right? For dance. How, as a coach, like, I need help. How do I help these kids through this? What techniques do you use when you go work with these teams to help the kids overcome those things? Because they have to be able to overcome them to be their happiest selves, let alone their highest performing selves, but their happiest selves.
And I would say happy is a good place to start. I would even take it a step further and go their truest, you know, because their truest may not be their happiest, but it's their most authentic. And when someone has access to their own personal style, then there's less friction in the room, which allows more grace to come through, which allows the routine or the move or the trick to look more organic. And so the three big psychological skills that I really try to fit almost all the exercises that I do with a team into is focus versus focus. Like, as a society, our focus is absolutely atrocious. We can't hold it for very long. And even when we do, we don't operate with a level of clarity to know what to do, even if we have time to focus. And so it's a prioritization of what's important. It's building a skill of holding attention, and it's practicing the reps of catching yourself when your mind drifts and bringing it back to the moment without judgment. Judgment is what keeps us locked into the past or the future and fear of other people's opinions. And so if we can work on more curiosity, more presence, more surrender to what the moment is, we can develop more focus power to bring more of ourselves to the moment. So whether that's meditation, whether that's decluttering schedule, intentionality in practice or in a routine, all those things can help maximize time. Then you have confidence, which is the second psychological skill, which can be developed, and it stems from how you talk to yourself. And usually how athletes talk to themselves is how their parents talk to them, or how one coach who they care deeply about or respected a lot talked to them. And so their own internal voice is not really their voice. It's someone else's. And until they realize that and start to peel apart where that came from or what needs to be said to get the result that they're after, it's kind of just being hopeful of, I hope this works, as opposed to, I've trained it to work, and that's where the priming, that's where the reframing, that's where the understanding and answering the hard questions comes from. That's the inner work, the appreciation of past successes, what is my ideal mindset? How do I want to operate? What do I need from myself and from my coaches to be at my best? When you have answers to those questions, not only do you give ammunition to your coaches to use that for you, with you, but you also empower yourself to not be dependent on anything outside of you, which is really, really powerful. Yeah. And then the third is calm. Training calm under pressure when it matters, when you're out there and the lights are there and there's screaming fans and you're in second place trying to go for first place, or in first place but not by very much, or in fifth place trying to get to third. Wherever you are, when it counts, can you show up at your best? And calm comes into play there, because if we're too agitated, too stressed, too excited, we're not on time. We're ahead of time. And that ahead of time creates anxiousness, and that creates too much speed or not enough. And so the expression that you're wanting to get through in the moment doesn't fully come through because you're living in multiple time zones, And so to be able to have calm, to know, hey, regardless of what happens out there, I trust in my ability to be able to handle it when and if it comes. That level of calmness allows people to stay centered and to see things that they wouldn't normally see if they were stressed, or to bring out things that they know they need to, even in stressful environments. And so those are the big three that I tend to focus on. But I'll pause there and throw it back to you.
Yeah, no, I love that. Especially the inner talk.
Yes.
Right. I had hanging next to my desk for a while, a quote, and it was something along the lines of the words you use for them become their inner voice.
Yes.
And how important that is. And also how hard it is to change that once it's already been programmed elsewhere as a coach, right? Like yes. Having dancers come in, not saying nice things to themselves and trying to figure out, how do I convince you that that's what you keep telling yourself isn't true? How do I convince you that you're an amazing person, an amazing dancer, and you deserve that spot? I literally had a dancer come up to me one time. I moved her to the front of turns, or I put her in the front for turns. She comes up to me, she goes, "Coach, why'd you put me in that spot?" I said, "Because you have amazing turns." Grayson was her name. She's beautiful. And she's like, "No, I don't." I said, "Yes, you do. You do. I promise you do." She was another one, and I'm sure she doesn't mind me sharing this story, but when she first joined, she had a very fixed mindset from previous teachers and coaches and, just the things that you go through in life. And she was a beautiful contemporary dancer, but she was only ever allowed to do tap. And so I said something to her about how she's a beautiful contemporary dancer and just a beautiful mover and all the things. And she's like, yeah, no, like I'm a tapper. And I was like, no, you're so much more than just a tapper. You should do a contemporary solo. Oh no, I'm not allowed to do contemporary solos. Said who? Like, you're on my team. You can do a contemporary solo. I'll choreograph it for you. She's like, oh, well, at my studio, like I'm only allowed to do tap solos because I'm a tapper. So, okay, well, I'm gonna give you a contemporary solo and you're gonna compete this contemporary solo and you're gonna slay. Yeah. And she did. And by the end of the year, her studio was having her compete that contemporary solo for them.
So cool.
And so, I mean, I don't know what the perfect answer is for helping dancers get rid of old narratives in their head and replace them with new. And I think every dancer is different, and it's not, I feel like there's nothing I can say to change your mind, but there are things that we can do to hopefully get you to a point where you see, like with Grayson, you are also a beautiful contemporary dancer. Yeah. Because look at this solo and how amazing it is. Yeah. And how much positive feedback you've gotten from everyone who watches it, not just judges, but everyone who watches it.
Yeah.
Which makes me think also the last thing that you were talking about, how do we also, so it's like the goal is to help these athletes be their best. And, Coronado, we're always aiming for first. And how we do that is the hard work, the collaboration, the teamwork, the grit, the overcoming obstacles, the being the best we can, the putting in the extra work, all of these life skills to help you reach these goals.
Right.
So how do we as coaches also help balance that with your identity also isn't connected to the outcome that the judges say? That's something that I've struggled with these last few years, because first year I went to nationals, there was a team crying over second place. And I remember telling myself, I will never be the coach who has a team crying over second place. Fast forward 10 years, I was the coach with the team who was crying over second place. What's your advice there?
Yeah.
How do you help athletes and coaches navigate the balance of like, we're trying to go first, but we're okay if we get second?
Okay. This is dicey. This is dynamic. I like it. I think that before I answer that question, don't lose track, 'cause I want to get to that. But I think an important precursor to that is, I think the job of a coach fundamentally is to see, hear, and understand their athletes. What I mean by that is, when you see someone, you're seeing who that person is beyond the performative image, beyond who they think they need to be to feel appreciated, loved, or safe, and to see their potential, which is what you were kind of talking about. Look, I see this for you. I see you in this position with this skill, making this level of impact. How does that sound for you? Is that something that you want? Well, yeah, cool. Engagement now. Now work can be done, because the coach or the leader, you can take this to your organization or any relationship and say, this is what I see for you. Is this something that you're willing to explore? What that does is it opens up the willingness to receive feedback and to move in a direction. But until that's vocalized, there may be two different visions that the coach is operating from and the athlete's operating from. And not to say that they won't meet somehow, but the sooner you can have it meet on the same page, the faster growth can happen. So I think the seeing individually of each athlete, and then the seeing of what the team can do and articulating that is one aspect. Two is the hearing. They're going to come to you with mistakes or excuses or concerns or fears. They may not be worded like that, but people don't tell coaches that they also need to be psychologists in order to be effective. So through repetition, you're going to start to see that certain athletes will act certain ways, and you're going to be able to hear what they're saying, but you're also going to be able to hear what they're feeling. And I think the quicker you can bridge those two of like, you're saying this, but you're doing that. And I think what's really happening here is this, is that true? And you help them understand their experience more, which kind of goes into the third element of like, understanding at the core of who that person is and what their skills are, and putting them in the place that they can shine, not in the place that you think you have to, or letting them guide the show. Like, it's really saying like, I see this in you and I understand you to be this way. And that's why you're in this part of the routine. I need someone strong here and I know you can do it. And so wherever you start on those three areas, I think the better you can get at that, the better the result is going to be, which can result in higher placement. Now, to come to your question of like second or whatever, can you reframe it or not re-ask it? Because I want to make sure I get the gist of what you're asking.
So I try not to ever be the one telling my dancers, like, we want to get first. I let them come up with their own goals. And a part of what I try to teach is whatever goal you set, here are all of the things that you need to do to try your best to reach those goals, right? Because that's what they're going to take into life. No goal is too big. So if you're shooting for a national championship, awesome. And then I try to add in there, we shoot for the moon, and even if we miss, we land amongst the stars. If we get top 10 at nationals, that's amazing. Every competition, our win is doing a little bit better every competition. And even before we go into awards, I sit down and we say, okay, was this a win? Was this the best we've ever done it? did you leave it all on the floor? No regrets. And everyone's like, yes, it was a win, because I talk about there's a difference between first place and a win. The judges pick who's first place. A different judging panel could pick a different first place. We determine what a win is.
Sure.
So I try to give a lot of focus to that. And then I still sometimes end up with dancers who we decided as a team that this was a win, but then you didn't get first place and everyone's devastated.
Okay.
I don't want them I want them to go for first and go for their goals. And I need them to be happy and proud of themselves regardless.
So, okay, a couple of things. One, I think for a team that's never gotten top 5, for them to get third, I don't think they're going to be in the situation that you're talking about, right? So there's layers to exposure and how often someone is in a top 5 experience that will dictate how they respond to first, second, or third.
Yes.
Because I've been with teams who have never placed top 10 and got third, and they were like, as if they won first.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's usually the teams who have gotten first and then get second in a different year that are just pissed. Right. And so there's a level of expectation, I think, that naturally happens when someone gets something regularly and then they don't get it. There's a break of expectation there that naturally human beings do. They just become attached to what is normal. And if top 3 is normal and I get 4th, something's wrong with me. You know, that's a natural way of thinking. Now, I'm not saying it's right, but that's natural. We didn't get what I thought we would get because of the story I kept telling myself, and the reality is not matching. So that's going to create disconnect. It's going to create frustration, stress. And so as long as an athlete is aware of that intellectually, that's different embodied, but the first step is intellectually understanding that. That's a good step. Then a team that got first and then gets second. I don't know if you can get rid of the frustration of getting second. It's how long does it last? And what changes as a result of that second? I think that's what I'm going to be looking at. Because the goal was to win. Did we win? No. Okay. If I'm upset for 2 weeks, something wrong. You know, if I'm upset for 30 minutes, that's normal. As long as when I come out of that upset, I can find ways to appreciate what we did, how we did it, and make adjustments to, without beating ourselves up, adjustments to how maybe we can do things differently, or who we can shout out that helped us get to that level. I think that's where it's healthy. Because I'm not here to say that like, oh, you didn't win, so just pretend that didn't happen. Like, you worked hard for that. And I think you should feel a little bit of that, because that happens in life. You're going to have a goal and you're going to go there, and most of the time it won't happen the way maybe all the time, it won't happen the way you think it will. Now, it may happen for you in the moment and you don't realize it until a year, 2, 3, 4 years later. You look back, you're like, I'm actually glad that had happened, because now our culture is different. Now we changed up our routine. Now the coach and the athlete relationship is a lot better. So we need those quote unquote falls or missteps or misalignments to find greater degrees of alignment. So I think if we're using second as a loss for lack of a better term at the moment, like, I think those are just as good. They may not feel like it, but if you zoom out, they're just as good as winning first, because they sharpen. People celebrate when they win, but they learn when they lose, quote unquote lose,
right,
or it doesn't go the way they thought. And so to blend those two, I think is just athletics.
Absolutely.
You know,
and the life lesson there, right? For everything you do, whether you're in a business, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a student. I like that. It's always a good reminder. So I guess as a coach, then the next step is helping the team learn and grow from that.
Yes. And to not judge here. This is a parenting thing as much as it is a coaching thing, of like saying, don't feel that. You know what I mean? 'Cause like, I've been with teams who were in first and then got second in finals, right? Or in third and then got first. But the teams that go from higher to lower, there's always a silent like irritation, frustration, sadness, feeling in the room. And oftentimes what I see, I want to be careful with my words here because I can understand the impulse, and I'm not saying that it's completely wrong. It's just nuanced. That an athlete and their way of thinking is different athletes interpret things differently. And so if I'm feeling frustration off of going from first to second, and I made a little misstep in a routine that may have costed that point deduction, there is a level of hardness that I'm going to have on myself. And for a coach to come by and say, don't feel hard on yourself immediately is taking away a feeling that athlete, I feel in that moment, needs momentarily, but I do believe it's a natural organic feeling that they need to have. And so for a coach to say, don't feel that, feel this, can rob them of a natural arc of expression. And so if that athlete comes off and is like, I'm sorry, I let everyone down, and they're just like in their head, just like zoning everything out, the best thing to do in that moment is to just breathe with them. Just, I understand. And maybe that's 10, 15, 20 seconds. And you want to know something? Even with that, I'm proud of you for how you responded after it. So you're not saying that they're wrong. You're not saying that it should be something else. You're meeting them where they're at and then guiding them to where they could be. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's less force and more collaboration of like, hey, I may be feeling the same thing if I were you in your situation. Let me meet you there for a second. Even though it may not, quote unquote, overall be where I want you to be, let me at least try to understand, And in that understanding, you'll be more receptive and more open to what I have to say next, as opposed to you believing that I don't understand where you're at and you're just trying to get me to feel better, and I don't want to feel better. So then you're compounding the distance and the frustration in the room, which further separates, as opposed to the inclusivity of like, look, guys, yeah, this sucks. Let's just take a moment for that. Let's honor that. Okay. Now, here is what I really loved that I saw, or I'm thinking about what this team represents to me. And what it represents is grit and resilience and passion and love for this sport. And with that love is going to come disappointment. It's going to come with things that you didn't anticipate happening. And this is one of those moments. And as heavy and as sucky as this moment is, I'm proud of this moment because we did all that we could. And yeah, we have mistakes, but we're going to make mistakes in life. And so it takes a very balanced, in tune coach to be able to hold that without bringing their own ego into it. We were in first. We should have gotten first. It's your fault we didn't get first. Now I'm going to look bad that we got third, which is so common. And again, awareness, skill, and slight tweaks can completely change a situation.
I love that. That's powerful. That's definitely something I needed to hear. And I hope everyone listening to this can take that into how they help their athletes, their employees deal with disappointment. Because I know I'm always the one that's like, it's fine. It's great. I still love you. It was great. This was amazing. It's fine. And I think that's going to be powerful if I can do exactly what you just said and take a step back, breathe with them, acknowledge and honor what they are feeling instead of doing what I naturally instinctively do, which is like, it's fine. It's great.
Yeah.
Not big deal. Not big deal at all. You're good. We're good. It was great.
Right.
And sit there with them for a little bit and acknowledge that because it does suck if you're shooting for something and you don't get it.
And think about the growth. If you think back to all the painful moments in your life, if I think about all the painful moments in my life, those were my biggest learning moments, And so if we can keep an athlete engaged in the moment with us, even when they're hurting, they're learning. If we create distance, now we we lose the opportunity to refine the learning and the timeline in which the learning can happen. Because that emotion unheld or not in the right environment won't grow. What's the term? Exponentially. It'll be a fractured growth, And so to have someone there that is not as judgmental or is more understanding, again, I think it just opens up more richness to come into the moment, which lands the lesson better and creates an anchor moment that can be referenced later in the future, whether that's next season, referencing back to this current season that we're talking about, or 10 years later, having that moment be a pinnacle or a catalyzing moment of how they view failure. It's a very rich opportunity if done right. Yeah.
I love that.
So,
and that's what it's about.
That's it.
That's what it's about, is helping these kids be their happiest, most thriving individuals when they grow up and are adults, accomplishing and knowing that they're capable of anything they set their mind to in the world. And that doesn't mean it won't come without failure.
Yes. So you coach, you have a studio, you own an agency, you're traveling just as much as I am, it seems. What is that like? And what are you learning through all of that?
I'm learning delegate.
Yes.
Man, I'm big on, I love saying yes to opportunities. And so also learning when to say no, right? Yeah. So being able to sit back and ask myself, what is my goal? And when opportunities present themselves, does that light my soul on fire? Does that make me excited? Or is that just something that I feel like I should say yes to, and knowing when to say no? Having a new baby at home obviously has changed the game a lot in the last few years. 3 years ago, I did 45 routines. And so I was, everywhere all the time. And one of my goals was to be home more.
Yeah.
Also, I had to be.
Yeah, right.
And so learning to, number one, delegate. I hired a personal assistant recently and an executive assistant, and she's just been amazing. So learning how to delegate and let her handle things that I've always held on to. And that idea of like, oh, but I can do it better. It's faster if I just do it. But understanding that it might take longer to teach her how to do it once, but then in the bigger picture, she's going to be able to do a lot more. Setting boundaries for myself.
Yes.
2 years ago, I finally set the boundary of I will be home 1 weekend a month.
Yes.
It might not seem like a lot, but that was a lot. Yeah. Like no matter what, 1 weekend a month, I will be home. Setting that boundary, setting that boundary and sticking to it. Learning how to do that better, learning how to delegate more, and also knowing that it'll be okay. So like financially, right? Saying no to a team who wants me to choreograph the routine means I'm making less money. And I don't know, just having the trust in like myself and my husband that like we'll be okay. I can turn down that job. I definitely somewhere have a little bit of a lack mindset of like, can't turn down that job because we need the money. And so being able to identify that within myself too, and take a deep breath and say, I'm going to hold this boundary of being home that 1 weekend that month. Yeah. And we're going to be okay without that extra, job of income. So that trust too, that like, it'll be okay. And being able to switch from that scarcity mindset of I need the money to the abundance mindset of we'll be okay. Also, I don't know. Do you struggle with that? Totally. Turning down jobs?
I have a really powerful story that has really changed the game for me. But you said two things. One is saying no, and then instilling boundaries. And the cool thing about each of those is that Steve Jobs said, all focus is saying no. And when you first get into something, whether it's creating your own business like myself, you say yes to everything. Yes gets you in the game, but no keeps you there. Because with no is prioritization. And with prioritization is the allocation of attention, which is focus. right? So the better you get at no, the better you get at yes, the better you get at focus. So I love that you said that, because that is a really powerful concept that, if harnessed continuously, will only allow you to focus on what you find most important. So that's cool. Boundaries are for protection. There's a quote by Mark Groves that says, walls keep people out, boundaries show people where the door is. Right? It's like we treat people how to treat us, or we teach people how to treat us through boundaries. Like, this is where you end and I begin, right? Boundary, line, we do not cross that, whether that's in a conversation or in business or how we operate. Boundaries are mandatory. And the sooner one can say, here are the boundaries around my life, my relationships, my business, my time, my money, my access, controlling the controllables, the more effective one becomes. And the people who interact with that person, because now they know how to treat you. If the boundary's not there, then you can be too soft. You could be a tumbleweed. They could be an oak tree. You kind of will miss each other, and it'll just be very muddy, murky. So those two things are really powerful. And along the lines of saying no to money, this was a year and a half, maybe a year and 3 months, was approached by someone I know, and they were telling me about this opportunity to lead this project. And at first it sounded cool. I was like, oh, yeah, I totally can do this. And then this individual was like, it'll be about 150,000, and you could work on it as much as you feel you need to. And I was like, I could totally do this. But the more I kept listening and the more I sat there and asked questions, the more I was like, this is going to take a lot from what I'm already doing. And I'm not fully in love with this. I can do it, but I only want to do things that are in full alignment, because that's where time distorts. That's where I'm at my best. That's where I feel most on purpose. And so I'm like, thank you for the opportunity, but no. And for me to turn down that amount, when I don't want to say it would be easy, but close. I could do that.
Yeah.
But I don't have to do that. And that taught me even more faith in my ability to attract the right clients at the right time, but also to create enough space for miracles to happen, for my relationships to flourish, and for my yeses to be more meaningful. So that was a really powerful moment. And I very regularly reference back to that decision.
Yeah, it's a big decision.
Yeah.
It's a big no. Yeah. It makes me think of the quote, every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And so if you would have said yes to that, what would that mean you were saying no to?
Right.
I think about that a lot. Even like taking an extra job, I'm saying yes to another weekend away from home, which is saying no to my family. Right.
And when you put it like that, you're like, damn. Right.
Not taking any job.
I know, people always ask, like, how do you balance it? I'm like, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't balance. There's no such thing as balance. I don't believe in balance. I think it's a lie. I think it's not accurate at all, because that would mean that you have equal time for everything. And that's just not the case. People spend most of their time at work. And so if you're going to spend most of your time at work, then one, do more of what you love or what you like, or more of
making me emotional over here, James.
And like, it's important to think about these things, because if you can align what you do most of your time to something that is mostly you, then you're going to bring you to everything else.
Right.
And that's why I try to teach business leaders when they bring me in, like, if you can instill a culture where the individual thrives, not only are you going to make more money, but you're going to have more retention. So less people are going to leave. You're going to have higher productivity. You're going to feel better, but you're going to change the trajectory of those people's lives outside of work.
Yep.
So where are we spending the most time, and how are in those areas where we are spending the most time, how are we making those environments rich in alignment and opportunity and growth and contribution? And if we could do that right, win.
That culture, the culture within your business, the culture within a team that you coach, the culture within an agency, if you know, that's what you do. It's everything.
Yeah.
Because then it makes the things you say no to easier to say no to,
yes.
if that makes sense, right? If we're talking, you know, saying yes to this means saying no to your family, but like I find myself, I love creating.
Same.
Like if I'm with a team and we're like in the zone and we're creating something and we're having fun and we're workshopping, I love doing that. I love coaching. Mm-hmm. I love being with my kids and doing these activities and seeing the breakthroughs and seeing them reach new levels of what they never thought was possible. I love that. And I love my family.
Sure.
And so the more within the agency, within the studio and within my team, we have that good culture and we're doing those things that we love, the easier it is to do because it's more fun and it's more fulfilling, and the time distortion, right? And the being proud of it and just enjoying it.
Yeah. One of our, you know, Brandon. Yeah. I'm sure you guys also have heard me talk about Brandon many times, but he said that one person or a few people have asked him, like, don't you ever get burnt out from working so much? He's like, well, first of all, I don't work, I purpose, and I purpose 24/7. And I love that, because when you're on purpose with purpose, it isn't work. And it doesn't mean it's not it's not hard, because there are hard moments, but everything has meaning. And if it has meaning, all of you or most of you is there. And so you're in the moment, pulling life into yourself. You're giving life to it and receiving life. There's a higher level of exchange, which enriches that moment. And then you bring that joy, that natural, charismatic, magnetic energy to other things, right? So for me, like traveling a lot, Amanda has said multiple times, stop traveling as much, and I'm doing my best, but I love what I do as well. So I love what I do for work or purpose. I love my family, and everything I do has love at the center. So it flows in harmony, not in balance, because I have my busy seasons. Amanda has her crazy seasons right now with school, and we're not spending as much time as we normally do with each other because we just got craziness going on. But if we could be more present in the time that we do have, those moments matter more. And there will be a period in a few months where it'll slow down a bit and we'll have more time together. And, you know, it's just an ebb and a flow. And so long as everyone's in that conversation and kind of knows where everyone's at, which is the importance of communication, then everyone can flow more harmoniously down the river of life.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you experience this, but I know I'm doing what I'm meant to do so normally if I'm away from home, I'm thinking of my kids, I'm thinking about my husband, I'm thinking about Miles and Bennett, but I'll have times when I'm creating or choreographing and coaching, and I'll realize like, hey, I haven't thought about my baby for 2 hours. I'm like, okay, like that's a good thing. I think that's always my sign that you're okay here. You don't need to be there. You are good. You can be here and continue to be fully present here. Yeah.
And the levels of gratitude that you can have for Rob or Bennett to be holding down the fort. To allow you to be like that. Like I think about that for Amanda, and I remember listening to an interview with Steven Kotler on a podcast, and said that his observation of people who were very masterful in their craft typically had someone that took care of a lot of the maybe day-to-day things that could weigh down decision-making or ability to focus, so that that person can focus. And I thought that was an interesting insight. And I think about Amanda in a lot of ways of like me trusting her so much and knowing that she is such a great mom to our kids. I can be more present and have less guilt because of how she parents.
She's a super mom. Yeah, she's amazing.
She really is. And Rob is great in that way too, you know?
A super dad and amazing.
Yeah. So to have, and that's something that you guys have crafted, right? That's not like happenstance. We're just happen to be together and I'm just going to peace. like you've obviously worked on that, as have Amanda and I, and maybe those listening, like that can be developed.
Right.
It's not easy, but it's possible and it can be done.
Yeah, definitely not easy. I mean, with a new baby, it's definitely been a push and pull of both of us been working from home, and we don't have Miles in daycare because we're both at home. And so that like, okay, I have a meeting. Can you watch him? Okay, now you have a meeting and I'll watch him also. That
pitch and catch
collaboration.
Right.
And what that looks like. But yeah, I mean, I know I'm very, very grateful for just, we talk all the time about like, I just love our life. Like we get to be home, we get to be together. We'll be outside doing lunch together in our yard. And it's like, how many people get to sit down with each other and have lunch at 12 p.m. on a Wednesday in their backyard together. And so lots of gratitude there for as much stress as there also is and craziness in our lives right now. Definitely had to find like those moments of like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah. That's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately as I've been trying to restructure my work schedule, is like finding gratitude and peace in those smaller moments, where it's me and Oakley in the morning and I'm making him breakfast and I'm just watching him eat, or it's Aiden and I holding hands from the car to his classroom, or like them riding bikes and me just watching them as little kids and just observing how their little brains are working, right? Like those are even the annoying moments too, when they're like almost breaking something in the house. And I'm like, like reminding myself of like, these are the moments. And my clients, like I was in the Netherlands recently and he's like, so when you go home, like you're going to have some off time. I'm like, what's that? As soon as I get off the plane, I'm in dad mode. Amanda's gonna be like, hey, you've been gone for a while. Here are the kids.
You go.
Yeah. And so like, there is no off. And all I can do is really just find gratitude and just like beauty in the thick, and that eases the tension a bit. And when my tension in my body is lessened, my kids respond completely different than if I'm tense and uptight and controlling, or like, no, don't do that. It's like, hey, get down to their level. This is what we got to do. And he listens better. Aiden and Oakley. Like I got a call from the gym the other day. They're like, hey, Oakley's not listening. He's trying to escape the kids club. I'm like, okay. So I got to go down there and I'm getting down to his level and I'm looking in the eye and I'm like, hey, I hear you're not listening, buddy. That's not, we got to be better at that. You want to go home? You want to play with Woody and Buzz? Yeah. Okay. Then you got to listen. And he's like, okay, I'm almost done with my workout. I'll be back. And he was fine. But like, if I would have came in there and be like, look, I'm trying to get a workout in, who knows how that would have gone. But managing the energy is so important in the chaos.
Yeah. And that's hard. I mean, I'm sure I know it's hard for me, and maybe you can relate to the idea of, you say, get off the plane and you're never off because then you're in dad mode. But then also I'm sure with owning your own business, you're also still working.
Yeah. You never stops.
Never stop. There have been a couple times when I've been like really high stress. So I'm like, oh, how nice would it be to just like clock out and be done? Because it's 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, somewhere in your brain, somewhere in your brain, it's there. Yeah. And maybe that's a me problem. And maybe that goes back to setting better boundaries of like, I'm turning my brain off today from work, and I'm not turning my brain back on to work until tomorrow. I have not learned how to do that yet. Yeah. But
well, the thing that makes it hard is it's a passion,
right? It's
something that comes so naturally. So it's not like you're forcing yourself to think about it. It's just, it's so you that you can't help but think about it. And like in my job, like a small, cool moment in my life can be a very powerful story that I could potentially share with someone that could help unlock something. So I'm always in like, it's like a comedian searching for a joke to tell, like that's how I feel a lot of times. It's like, I'm an observer of life, and part of me observing what is working for me and others is by acknowledging that is something that I can use while I'm experiencing it, which brings a meta to the moment. And so it's like, well, dang, does your mind ever shut off? In meditation for 15 minutes? But then it's like back in like, ooh, that was a good idea. Now I'm clear. Now all these downloads are coming in. And so structure, support, purpose, exercise, sleep, nutrition, the fundamentals, if we can master more of those, that chaos can begin to subside to the point where it doesn't rock us as much. It keeps us slightly agitated, which moves us in a direction, but it doesn't overwhelm us.
Absolutely. And I guess how lucky are we to have something that we're so passionate about that it does enter our thoughts all day long, right? Because if I was doing a 9 to 5, that was something I wasn't passionate about.
Right.
It's like, okay, so be miserable from 9 to 5 and then my brain's free the rest of the day, or love what I'm doing 9 to 5, but then it stays with me at all times.
Right. Powerful. Anything else coming through for you?
Oh, no. Even just being able to sit here with you right now and talk about stuff like this is really, really awesome. So thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And I hope there's a lot here that your listeners can grab onto and help them think about something of maybe a way that they can make their lives happier, better, more fulfilling. I liked what you said about it's not working, it's purposing.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of people who own their own businesses, it's something that they are passionate about, or maybe at some point they were, right? And maybe it's something they can find their way back into. But there was a lot. I feel like we were just chit chatting and I'm asking you, how do I deal with this? How do I help with this? And so thank you as always for the insights, the help, the everything. And I mean, I've had you working with my Coronado Congrats team for, 10 years now, probably, if not more. And so much of what that program is from what you've brought to them. So thank you for really, really shaping that program, shaping me as a coach and a leader, and everything you do. You don't realize how far it reaches, I think, because I have alumni come back who are like, yeah, and I remember that one time when James said this, and I'm like, 9 years ago? Yeah. And so then when I was working with these people, I told them that, and they're like, oh, that's so smart. And so just know that your reach goes so much further than you think.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's a collaboration.
Yes.
So if you were to say something to a coach, an athlete, and a business owner, you could say anything.
Okay.
It could be a piece of advice. It could be something that you want them to remember. It could be a question you want them to explore. Deliver whatever you feel called to each of those three.
Okay. We'll start at athlete. Athletes, I think my challenge for you is make sure that you are a part of a program that aligns, what's a good way to say this? Kind of how we talked about earlier, in the sense of there are so many programs that aren't helping kids be their best and happiest selves. And so athletes, I think my challenge for you is take a step and think about the leadership that you have around you, your coaches, studio owners, teachers, and ask yourself, are they helping you be your happiest, most thriving selves? And if not, find somewhere that is. One. Coaches, if my challenge for you, this isn't really questions or advice, we're challenging everyone. Coaches, reflect back on what was programmed, negative things that were programmed in you as you were growing up, and how can you make sure you're not projecting that programming onto your athletes? And then business owners, find ways to be present and love what you're doing, as well as business owners, find the limits of your leaders. And I don't mean the limits of your leaders in being, making your business more money, but the limits within your leaders of being their happiest, most thriving selves. Business owners, help your leaders find that within themselves, because at the end of the day, when you're looking back, like, that's the most important work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if any of that makes sense.
So what I get from that, and we'll start from the last to the first, is that leaders create leaders.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think a lot of times leaders can get caught in, I'm the leader and I got to do all of these things, as opposed to who can I empower to take over this responsibility, because it's something they want and it's something that they can be great at and they can lead that area. Right. So really thinking about who that might be. The coaches, self-awareness and curiosity is really what you're asking them to do, is like, where are your blind spots as a coach? Where are you projecting something that doesn't need to be onto the athlete, that doesn't need to be there?
And what's your goal?
Yeah.
What's your goal as a coach? Because if your goal is to win, you're never going to be happy, even when you get those wins.
Mm-hmm.
But if your goal is to develop relationships with these kids and relationships amongst them and skills that they're going to carry on for the rest of their lives, I promise you, your time with them is going to be so much more fulfilling and so much more fun. And you're going to have so much more of that time distortion where you blink and it's like, wow, 3 hours just went by and we were kicking butt. And coaches, like, we talked about it earlier. The paycheck obviously isn't the paycheck. At least in Vegas, coaches don't get paid anything. It's pretty much volunteer work. I pay more to Coach Coronado than I make in my little stipend. But the paychecks are the alumni who send you the wedding invites and the baby shower invites. And I have alumni dinners at my house and they all come over and they're talking about all of the things they're doing. And I'm just like a proud mom, like, that's amazing. That's amazing. Keep going. You got it. And being able to follow them and cheer them on through their entire life. Like, those are the paychecks. And so coaches, if self-awareness, reflection, you're going to enjoy your time with them so much more too if you focus on those things, because you see the coaches and their egos attached to that win. And if they're not winning, like you said, they're yelling at their kids, well, you need to do this and you need to do this and this is why you lost. That's not fun. And if it's not fun, why are you doing it?
Yeah. Right. And then the prompt to the athlete is really to uncover, to the best of their ability, depending on age, is what environment helps them be their truest. And can they communicate that more to their peers, to their coaches? Most importantly, what skills can be developed so that regardless of those two things, they can still show up the way they want to, as best as they can.
Yes.
Cool. Love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you for being here, learning a little bit more about the dance world, which is amazing and crazy all at the same time. And I hope that you were able to pull some lessons for your relationships, your businesses, your opportunities that you have coming down the line. So let's all play to win at level 3 and continue to be our own 1%, living life on our terms, on purpose. Go out there and be you. Much love.